Okay, that is the snort of freedom, Grunt the Pig, telling us that we're about to do the heroes and villains segment. So we'll start off with the heroes, the people that have stood up for freedom around the world this week, and we want to acknowledge them. Pete, who have you got?
I've got man who confronted Elizabeth Warren.
So we get a name?
He's unknown. No one knows who he is. Elizabeth Warren, of course, is going for the Democrat nominee for president.
Yep.
She's proposed to cancel $640 billion in student loans, up to $50,000 a person. She says her
Sign me up.
Exactly. She says her plans would benefit 42 million Americans, but it does not address the millions of Americans who have worked hard to put their kids through college, or kids who've paid for themselves to go through college. One Iowa father confronted her at a recent event during the week. Here he is.
My daughter's getting out of school. I saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us that did the right thing get screwed.
No, it's not anybody got screwed. When we
Of
started
course we did. My buddy had fun, bought a car, went on vacations. I saved my money. He made more than I did. But I worked a double shift, worked extra. My daughter's worksheet is 10. So you're laughing. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing.
Now, my favourite part of this, James, is when she goes, of course not. Of course you won't be paid back for your hard work.
Yeah, what do you think? This is fair? It's not fair.
We're going to reward effort?
Yeah.
How quaint.
Yeah. What a novel concept.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, like, the thing is, this guy gets screwed over even harder by this deal because, you know, you can only pay this guy back money, but you can't pay him back, like, oh, you didn't go on that holiday because you wanted to, like, you can't give a guy a holiday. You know what I mean? You can't give a guy a holiday
it's in the past.
In that time. It's gone. It's not coming back. So you can only do the money. You can't do the emotional stuff as well.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So to Iowa man, you're my hero this week. And his daughter, because she paid for it as well.
Now,
apparently.
Pete, I gave you crap for not knowing who this guy was, but I also I'm not able to like quite narrow in on a singular person that is my hero this week.
Yeah.
It might wheel around to Joe Biden eventually. Stick with me. But so anyway, like there was this whole thing this week because Joe Rogan on his podcast said he'd vote for Bernie Sanders in the election.
Which is a touch disappointing.
Yeah.
To me.
So he says that. He says, I reckon Bernie Sanders, I'd vote for him. Then this like hard left freak out on Twitter comes out and, you know, and all these papers as well, because Joe Rogan doesn't think that transgender athletes should compete against female competitors in the MMA. And people say you can't accept, Bernie Sanders shouldn't accept Joe Rogan's support because he's a transphobe. And like, I like it, and they're my heroes because I don't want Bernie Sanders president, and any efforts to stop that, of the hard left eating itself and people fighting this one out over anything else helps. I just want to give a quick shout out to Joe Biden, who tweeted this like moments after the Joe Rogan thing came out. Which, for people listening at home, is him tweeting, let's be clear, transgender equality is the civil rights issue of our time. There's no room for compromise when it comes to basic human rights. I just want to ask Joe Biden, when did you believe that? Was it like 10 years ago? Was it 5 years ago? Was it when the social media intern ran in with this story and said we should do something about this?
Yeah.
Like, when did it become the defining moment of our time?
There's been a lot of politicians changing their views in this episode.
Very quickly. There seems to be a recurrent theme in this episode. Yeah, Bernie Sanders supporters / detractors are freaking out that Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster in the world, his support might make him too electable to audiences that might not vote for Bernie Sanders anyway. Yeah. So anyway, that genre of people are my hero of the week.
So just to be clear, it's the left eating itself is
yes,
your hero.
You should have done that one.
That's quite deep.
Yeah, thank you for putting it in exact words rather than just babble I came out with.
No, I'm impressed. That's a good one. All right. Now, we've been looking for a new name for Villain of the Week, James. Yep. So we used to have the Walter Peck Villainy Award. We didn't like it that much, so we've changed it. As you guys know, I've been showing this footage fairly regularly.
Extinction Rebellion protests enter their 6th day. The activists are trying to pressure the Australian government.
Now, that is the Extinction Rebellion protesters, as we've spoken about many times on this show.
Over this, but
in October, doing a fake nudie run,
yep,
where they said we're doing a nudie run, we're going to save the planet, and then none of them were nude. I'm sorry, people, that is not a nudie run. So as a result, James actually had the brainwave. I'm surprised that he said we should name the Villain Award the Extinction Rebellion Fake Nudie Run Award.
I did not have that idea.
So that's
don't
what
put
we're
this on
do.
me. I don't want this clip played.
So, James, if you want to get to the bare facts of your pick for this week,
boy.
The bare facts.
No. I was wondering why you were giggling for an hour at your desk.
The bare facts.
All right. Sorry. My villain of the week this week. So, people might have seen there was a story that Mike Pompeo was being interviewed by an NPR journalist on the trip Mike Pompeo is being interviewed by an NPR journalist, and Mike Pompeo gets so angry with her about this Ukraine and Russia and deal that he eventually makes staffers come over with a blank map and says, you know what, point to Ukraine right now. If you're such an expert, point to Ukraine. And then the NPR host immediately points to Ukraine and then walks off. Power move.
Yeah, that's good.
So, people are talking about this, and I just want to play this clip from a CNN show hosted by Don Lemon, where you've got panelists Rick Wilson and Wahajid Ali. They're talking about this conference, and they just want to talk about how, they sort of reveal how they feel about Trump voters. It's very subtle. But see if you can pick it up.
Playing to their audience, the credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling.
That is just Trump's campaign ad for 2020. Just play that. You don't need any music. You don't need anything else. You don't need anything at all. You just play that clip.
Absolutely right. When people ask, I can't understand why people vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's why.
That is the reason.
That is what they think of people. Yeah. Anyway, that is my villain of the week.
Yeah, and also that host, he was doing that thing like that. The thing about that was it actually wasn't that funny.
No.
He's doing that thing hardcore, whereas if I just laugh hard enough, everyone will be convinced this is funny.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't.
Which is a podcast staple from our perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know what you're doing, mate. I know what you're doing.
Good one, Pete.
All right,
your villain of the week.
My villain of the week, my Extinction Rebellion Fake Nudie Run Award of the week, Dr. James.
Villain of the week.
Dr. James Mukey, Australian of the Year this week. So he's an Adelaide eye doctor who founded an organisation called Sight for All that trains eye doctors from developing countries and impacts 1 million people a year. So obviously I've made him my villain of the week.
Yes.
And I was reading...
You shock jock.
I was reading his bio. I'm like, why am I doing this? Anyway, the reason I'm doing this is because no sooner had he rightly won the award for all his great work than he said, I think we need to take sweet products away from checkout counters, particularly when they're discounted. We've got to make them less accessible to the public. He said a sugar tax should be on the table to address the sugar that we're apparently eating too much sugar, blah, 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 blah. It would be nice to have an Australian of the Year that doesn't use their platform to immediately introduce, more laws and more control over us. I hate this stuff that I'm an expert. I know what's better for these silly poor people. I'm an expert in one area of life, therefore I know the economic and political solutions for everything else. So, James
That's
Mukey,
why they should make you Australian of the Year. Because you would only just get up and encourage people to froth.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's your entire speech.
Just to live your life.
Yeah.
So, no, James Mukey, reluctantly, despite all your good work, you have my Extinction Rebellion Fake Nudie Run Villain Award for this week.
I just want to highlight one quote from that article where he's talking about the problems with sugar. But he says this: sugar is cheap and ubiquitous, so it's readily accessible to everyone. You walk into a service station, there's a counter of lollies as you walk in. Now, is that a point for him or against him? Because that sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, how good is that? You walk into a service station and there's just a million things that taste nice.
Readily available confectionery.
Yeah.
You beauty.
The beautiful world. All right. Speaking of things that are readily available and plentiful in a free market world, we'll now go to an interview with Matt Ridley. That is a segue for the
ages.
That is a segue for the ages. And now I'm tripping over it by explaining my genius. So let's just go to that interview before I make this worse for myself.
Yeah.